Hey guys, John V from PhoneArena here. You're watching our video review of the Amazon Fire Phone. This is brand new territory for the company. In the past, they already proven to be a really strong competitor in the tablet market just because of the success of Amazon's Kindle Fire tablets. But here with the Fire Phone, it's contending with some fantastic phones already for the first half of 2014. Fire Phone though has some really cool services and of course some cool features. Priced at $200 with a 2-year contract exclusive to AT&T at the moment. So it's going to be intriguing to see how it's going to be able to stand out amongst the elites in the space. Original designs are hard to come by nowadays, and the Amazon Fire Phone looks like any other black slab device out there. And it draws some comparisons to the Google Nexus 4 just because there are several similarities. That's because it features a glass finish with its rear casing, elevating its premium status. But at the same time though, the polished looks tends to get a little bit messy just because it's more prone to fingerprints and smudges. Holding in our hand, we gotta say it's pretty manageable. It's not too large, but at the same time, there's a fair amount of weight with this device, but it does add to its overall sturdy construction. What makes its design different from other phones are the 4 camera sensors in addition to the front-facing camera that are littered throughout the front. They all combine and work together to provide the phone with one of its coolest features called dynamic perspective. So basically you get this really neat 3D effect with the lock screen and several other elements with the interface, and you're able to peek around corners so it tracks our head as we're moving. So whether we're moving our face or if we're actually moving the phone, we could see around corners, and it's really nice, but at the end of the day it becomes more of a novel feature than anything else. As for the display itself, there's nothing really astounding when we look at it from a specs point of view. It's a 4.7-inch 720p IPS LCD panel, giving it a pixel density count of 315 pixels per inch. Yeah, we're bummed that it's not 1080p, but nevertheless, 720p still gets the job done. It's still very sharp, and you don't have to do a lot of squinting when you're trying to look at something from a far distance. So the display resolution isn't anything impressive, but there are several really nice elements about the panel. The first thing is that it has very accurate color reproduction, spot on with nearly every color, and has also a fantastic color temperature. When it comes to outdoor visibility, you're not going to have any issues with this. It offers really wide viewing angles, and it's probably one of the brightest screens out there on a mobile smartphone. Looking around the phone, we have dedicated buttons for volume control and the camera on the left edge, the power button and the 3.5mm headset jack on the top, and the micro USB port and microphones on the bottom side. It also offers stereo support just because you have a speaker on the bottom edge and on the top, so when you hold it in landscape, you get that left and right channel. In the rear, Amazon's able to throw in a pretty beefy sized 13 megapixel autofocus camera, which features an LED flash, an f2.0 aperture lens, 1080p video recording, and optical image stabilization. While in the front, there's only a 2 megapixel camera. If you've never experienced using any of the Amazon Kindle Fire tablets, the experience here with the Fire Phone is going to be somewhat new to you. It's actually based on Android 4.2 and is Amazon's own Fire OS 3.5 proprietary experience. So the home screen's made out of 3 different things. So you have the main carousel here, which just shows you the most recently launched applications. So it's an endless amount. It has a really nice 3D effect to it. And with each one, you can see how it changes the midsection right here. So you can view some additional content related to that application. And the bottom here, you have quick access to 4 functions. You have your phone, messaging, email, and the Silk browser. If you slide up there, that's where you gain access to the app panel. Unlike typical Android, there isn't as much personalization found here with the Fire OS 3.5 experience. It's pretty much minimal, so basically the only thing that we have access to is selecting a lock screen. And of course the lock screen is very unique just because it uses that new dynamic perspective technology, so you have a very cool 3D effect. You continue to see that effect in several other places, like the home screen here. So you tilt it, it pans and moves. The notifications panel is very similar to Android. You could swipe down to jump in, or as an alternative, you could use that flick gesture to gain access to it. We have access to some of the connectivity features and also the ability to adjust the brightness, and we could just scroll through the listing of different notifications. And if you want to just disregard one, we could swipe away, and certain ones we have additional functionality by just doing a swipe gesture. And even in some games too, but honestly though, until they come out with some serious games, we're not going to be using it all that much, especially when it comes to puzzle games. Unfortunately, that's pretty much where we see dynamic perspective used, just because with many of the third-party applications you download, they're not used, so they're pretty much the same static ones we find on any Android smartphone. So it'll be interesting to see how developers make use of this feature down the road. There's still a learning curve navigating throughout the interface just because it utilizes these various one-handed gestures. For example, if I want to access the notifications panel, I just flick very quickly like that. It goes in, and then do it again, it goes out. Now, depending on the application, there are left and right menus, and to get into them, for example, here on the home screen, we just tilt the phone like that. We have a menu here on the left side. If we flick back, we get to the home screen, and flick again one more, we could see the weather in this case. Of course, the gestures are useful if you want to operate the phone with just one hand, but you could still accomplish the same thing by just swiping from the bezel. So for example, you could do it like that from the left side and vice versa on the right. And just like dynamic perspective, many of the third-party applications don't utilize these gestures, so it's a matter of trial error to see what apps exactly work with them and what don't. The other really big standout feature of the Fire phone is Firefly, which is arguably the most powerful shopping tool out there. So basically, you can launch it by holding down the button on the left side of the phone, which is the camera button. From here, you could just basically use the rear camera to scan different things from books to DVDs to UPC codes. And from here, it provides us some pretty useful information. Once it's scanned, we can shop for deals through Amazon, which is great if you love shopping there, and you get some additional information from third-party apps like IMDb and even Flixster if you have it preloaded with the device. Now, it's still kind of sparse when it comes to third-party support. For example, nothing for eBay, nothing for Craigslist. So hopefully down the road, in addition to Amazon, it'll show some prices too with the competition. Not surprisingly at all, if you love Amazon, you're going to really like what the phone has to offer in terms of shopping, just because it incorporates several of Amazon's top services. So from music, videos, photos, books, audiobooks, you have everything on here at your disposal, and it's a great shopping experience as well. It's obvious that the experience is different from other Android smartphones. It's a great shopping tool, but when it comes to getting stuff done, it doesn't offer as greater depth compared to typical Android, just because it doesn't offer as many of the applications you find. In order to do that, you got to go through the Amazon App Store, so it's very limiting in what it offers. It's pretty easy typing up messages with the on-screen keyboard just because it's spacious, very responsive, and you also have this swipe-like method as an alternative. We really can't complain about the web browsing experience either, just because you have very fast 4G LTE speeds and navigational controls, and uses the dynamic perspective feature. So basically you tilt the phone a little bit to scroll up and down, but there's no left and right functionality. Armed with a quad-core 2.2 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 processor with 2 GB of RAM, it's not the newest chipset, but hey, it gets the job done, especially for gaming. It just has a really nice, snappy response. The music player has a typical interface. You have an album cover, controls, and all that. You could still use the one-handed gestures to get to different things. You could see what content you have stored on the device or in the cloud that you purchased. And if you go all the way to the right panel, you can even view the lyrics. What's strange though is that there's a totally different application for Amazon Prime Music, so you gotta launch that to gain access to that service. As far as the audio quality, the volume is very strong, but the overall tone is just a little bit on the hollow side. With a vibrant screen, the phone comes to life when it comes to watching videos and also offers support to a wide array of different codecs out of the box. On top of that, if you have an Amazon Prime membership, you could also take advantage of all the free movies you could stream over the air. You might miss out on catching a really nice photo just because the phone takes a little bit of time launching the camera app when the phone's locked. As for the interface itself, it's pretty bare bones. The majority of it is reserved for the viewfinder, shutter key on the right, switch to the photo video mode on the top right corner, and some additional buttons on the left side. There are barely any shooting modes on here. You have HDR, you have a lenticular mode, and also panoramic. Unfortunately, there are no manual controls with this one. For a phone outfitted with a 13 megapixel camera, the results are rather underwhelming. It's not to say it's totally bad, you'll still get some decent shots as long as there's plenty of lighting, but the details tend to be a little bit on the muddy side, and the color reproduction seems a little bit distorted as well. Under lower lighting situations, we tend to see the camera being prone to blurring and even issues with the focus, so you gotta really hold your hand steady so you don't get those results. The 1080p video recording quality is a little bit more tolerable. That's just because it features optical image stabilization, so it keeps things very smooth and steady, and it records at a very smooth frame rate. Our only issues are the muddy looking details and its sensitivity with exposure. It's just rather jumpy, but the audio quality is pretty clear and crisp, and also has continuous autofocus. Call quality is pretty average. For the most part, you're not going to have any issues making out phone calls. The earpiece and speakerphone volumes are pretty ample. On our end though, there's just a little bit of distortion with voices, but you don't get that on the other end of the line. The phone is undeniably a battery hog. Its 2400 milliamp hour battery just doesn't cut it. It seems like a reasonable capacity, but in all honesty, if you're a normal or power user, you're gonna constantly be recharging this phone. It could be attributed to that dynamic perspective display. They've obviously put in a lot of work and effort to the Fire Phone, and it clearly shows in things like the slick UI it's sporting. But at the end of the day, when it comes to getting work done, it just doesn't quite cut it. For example, its battery life is poor, call quality is average, its app selection is kind of limited compared to rival platforms, and its camera quality is underwhelming. So those are already some key areas where the Amazon Fire Phone can't compete against some of its rivals. On the flip side, if you're a die-hard Amazon user, you're gonna really appreciate what the handset has to offer, just because it incorporates many of the company's popular services, and best of all, it's a fantastic shopping tool as well with the aid of its new Firefly service. However, its $200 on-contract cost through AT&T right out of the gate is going to limit the handset's success just because it's a little bit overpriced, especially when we look at its overall quality and the type of value you get in comparison to some of the other elites in the space. To tell you the truth, if Amazon somehow brought the price down to the sub $50 mark, it would undeniably add a little bit more value to the handset and might attract more customers. But right now, for what it is, it's a little bit more of a pass. So if you guys want to learn more about the Amazon Fire Phone, you can check out our website, PhoneArena.com. It's John V. Thanks for watching.